How can you keep track of your kids' progress as they use the Robinson curriculum? What should you be keeping track of? What are some helpful tools in this process? You know me, I'm a very minimalistic mom when it comes to this. So I'm going to show you the ways that I do it, some of my favorite resources and tools, how to make this really easy, especially if you do not like to keep a ton of papers, schoolwork, clutter, and also what to do if you live in a state that is requiring additional subjects and how to create transcripts in general. Let's talk about all that in this video. Let's get started. Hi there, my name is Karen, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to help families like yourself achieve sustainable homeschooling, and a big part of that is this self-teaching methodology that is the Robinson curriculum. Now, in general, it's pretty minimalistic, reading, writing, and arithmetic. So I'm going to show you first how to keep track of progress in those three areas, and then we'll move on to the other things. Now, the way RC works is that they're just picking up where they left off the day before. So there's not really anything to lesson plan. You have a big giant book list that they work their way through. They have Saxon math books from 5-4 to calculus that they work their way through, and they write every day and do some vocabulary that corresponds with the book. So as you can see, there's not really anything to plan there. So how can you keep track and records of their progress when it's pretty simple? So let's take each component. Let's take the reading. So for the reading, I think it's very simple. The big thing is the RC reading list. So this is with the RC bonuses. Under the bonus section, you'll see different organizational forms. This one is my favorite. And so you can print one out for each student, write their name on it. And for each book, you would just write the date began and the date completed, so you could see how long it took them to read it. There's an exam grade section here. If you give them the exam that goes along with the book, you could put a grade there, or a book report grade. Let's say they finished the book. You just ask them to write a book report the following day on it. I like to just do book reviews. You know, did you like it? Did you not like it? Why not? Would you recommend this to somebody else? You know, just to not, I'm really big on just not wanting to not kill the love of books because I love books so much, and I try to treat others the way I'd want to be treated. I wouldn't be very motivated to start and finish books if I always had to write a book report on them, but I'm happy to share with other people what I liked about it, what I didn't like, and etc. So that's my take on book reports, but that's a whole thing outside this video. So if you do a book report, you know, you can put the grade there, oral, written, number of corrections to book report, etc. You have the corresponding subjects there, which is going to be really helpful if you do transcripts, and then maybe a reading grade if you want to give them a grade for their reading. Now, I just put the whole entire list in a sheet protector, and I put it inside their little IKEA bin. Each student has a little bin with everything that they need for the day when it comes to RC. The book report, vocabulary cards, the book they're reading, a notebook to write their essay, a notebook for Saxon math, Saxon error tracking sheet. Really, that's pretty much it. Maybe some vocabulary worksheets as well. So that's the reading, how you can keep track of everybody's progress. If you want, you can keep a master list in your binder somewhere where you can keep track of all the kids that have already read that book, or what books you need to print to acquire still, check off the books you have in your home library, etc. But it's helpful to have one for each kid and to track when they start, when they finish. Now, prior to the reading, let's talk about like the little stage. How can you keep track K through second, third grade, whatever? As they're going through Alpha Phonics, which is the program I recommend in RC Course for Littles, they should have an accompanying notebook. And this could be just any spiral notebook that you get at the store, or a composition journal, but I like spiral. I like things that you can lay flat, open. And as they go through each lesson, you can have them date it and then write the lesson number, and they should be writing with every single lesson. So these words that they learned how to sound out and read, they should write them down. You know, copy work or dictation, whatever, but they need to write all of the words and sentences from each lesson. So that's how you can keep track of progress in the early years. Keep that Alpha Phonics workbook. So that's it for reading. Now, when it comes to vocabulary, they correspond with the book. So you can just write on the side here, you know, vocabulary, add a column, check that they've worked their way through those vocabulary cards. Now, moving on to writing, they write every day. In the beginning, they can start off with copy work up until the age of 10, but then they're writing their own material each day. So in those early stages, when they're doing copy work, again, just keep a notebook for them. You can keep that for your records. We have a friend of the channel here who created this handwriting journal, and it's just really nice and big, like great for those early years especially. This is nicer to keep, I think, than spiral notebooks. I'm very visual like that, and that's why I created my Our House products, because I wanted something nice to be able to keep in banker's boxes and save. So for example, here's my essay writing book. This is one that's already been used. As you can see, it's just really worn out, but it still holds up really well. And in the beginning, I have a section where it just kind of goes over the basics of how to write a pretty decent essay here, guide to essay writing, as well as places for them. First of all, it has frequently misspelled words, just a standard list, and where they can write their own frequently misspelled words. That really helps with their spelling. And then there's some areas for brainstorming ideas, a lot of diagram pages, and then the rest is just a notebook. So I find this is really nice and easy to keep. You might obviously have multiple of these for 1 year, but they're really easy and nice to save. You can write the name, the dates, and keep that. I like to keep them in banker's boxes. So that is what I would recommend. But again, you could just use regular notebooks as well, but just save them. You know, they write in them and then they hand them to you. You give them feedback, give it back to them. They make the corrections, and then the next day they start a new writing assignment. So that would be really easy to keep. Now, moving on to math, just something really simple that you can do is keep the notebooks where they, work out all their Saxon math problems. So that's why I created the Saxon math answer book. Again, they can write their name, the date, the Saxon book that they're in. This is a new one here. And so each little 2-page spread, again, I like laying flat open, has room for 30 problems. You can put a score on the bottom. And it's got graph paper, which, cuts down on careless errors because of misalignment, misplacement. So I was trying to cut down on careless errors, computational errors, that's just like math facts, and conceptual errors where they don't understand the math concepts. So I have videos on that, but just little things like this, having some integrated graph paper there helps with that. So this is, again, just really easy, very durable. It's glossy cover. I really like these. So again, you could just use regular notebook paper or graph paper. I don't know if they have spiral graph paper, but that would be really nice to use. And then the other thing that I don't have one, I couldn't find one right now, is a calendar style. So it's like this, but in calendar format of this aerographing form. So after each lesson, they would just write a line at how many mistakes they made, how many errors. And of course they go back and they fix them, but it's still good on their first try to mark down how many they got wrong. Because if they got a lot wrong, more than this pink line is at in between 2 and 3. If they're getting more than that, then they should really slow down the next day, maybe 15 problems until they get a real good grasp on it, because it's only going to get harder and harder. So this is just a good indicator here. Now, so I get asked this all the time, is there a digital format to these things? For a long time there wasn't. You could only just buy the physical copies, but I do now have a bundle where you can buy them all. You can't buy them individually, just there's one bundle where you can buy all the insides of all of these products, and you could do this like what I did here. And then I would recommend, just maybe if you're going to print out a lot of those pages, you can make it really thick using a big heavy duty stapler like this. This is the Boss Stitch stapler. You might have seen me use it to make one of the RC books. So you can really do the whole year at once. Don't worry about running out, and just staple it with the heavy duty stapler. So all of the forms you could do that. The Saxon math answer forms, I think, yeah, I have one right here, where I just printed out the insert and then just stapled it. Of course, I prefer these, but unfortunately during the pandemic, shipping times were really delayed. I know a couple of you also emailed me a little bit frustrated with that. I was too, which is why I just started printing them and binding them. But I think they're back up to speed now, and I do like this better. So that is for math. Now for those early years when they're memorizing their math facts, I do have this one, the math flashcard guide, that gives you little sections to break it down. I just did a whole video on that. But in the back of it, there's also these math flashcard tracker forms where you can keep track of the progress of what cycles they've memorized. I have broken it down into cycles and parts so you can write down where they're at. So that's a good way to keep track something in those K through third years. You can keep track of math, where they're at with their flashcards. You would have the Alpha Phonics journal. Now I do have this available as a free printable, not the whole guide thing, but just this record form. So I'll go ahead and leave a link down below where you can get access to that. Now, what if you live in a state that is requiring other things, or you want to do other things and you want to keep track of it in a way that's not overwhelming? And I really want to focus on keeping it within the RC style and tools because there's a lot there you might not be aware of. So when it comes to language arts, grammar, there's the Professor K grammar and spelling. So when it comes to grammar, what you could do, you can print out the primer, you can print out the answers to exercises, you can use a comb binder. I have a video review on how to do that. I love those. Or again, if you don't want to do all that or buy all that, you could just get this heavy duty stapler. That's probably the most affordable option. But what I would do is print the passages, which I'm sorry, I don't have an example of that here right now. But in RC, it's broken up with the actual the primer, the actual explanation of the concepts and lessons. Then there's passages that you print out that they use, and then there's the answers to those exercises. So what I would recommend is printing all of those exercises and binding it in a little book format. Again, comb binder, stapler. And so that's kind of their progress, is all of the exercises and their corrections and sentence diagramming, all of that. That would be a great way to just keep track of language arts without being too overwhelming. Now, when it comes to science, geography, social studies, things like that, just keep in mind that most curriculums are just made up of books. For example, there's a lot of curriculums, but like unit study type curriculums, it's basically a master book recommending a whole bunch of other books to read. So you can cut the middleman out and just put down the books that you're reading. So to give you an example, let's say they're requiring you to specifically teach history. Well, you can look through maybe wherever stage they're at, a kind of a group of 10, 20 books around there, and look at all the books under the corresponding subjects that fit in that category. You have American history, you have world history, there are books under social studies, there are books under literature, different things like that. Just pick out those book titles and you can plug that in for the actual transcript. Especially for those subjects, I think it's more than enough to just have a transcript that show that they read those books, you discussed those books, narration, what have you. But if you really have to show something for those subjects, you could print out the vocabulary worksheets for that world history book, American history book. They could do the matching, they could do the crossword puzzle. You could separate and put to the side that particular book test or an essay, a book report that they did on that world history, American history test. And, just again, staple it, comb bind it. That's their history for the year. Same thing with geography. Now let's talk about science, because the approach to science is very unique with RC. Real science, physics, chemistry, biology doesn't start until after they've finished all of the mathematics books, because that's the language that you need before actual, physics, actual science. Everything prior to that is just topical things, facts, things that you can memorize and learn. So what you could do, RC course of study, the RC website does have in the bonus section science monographs. So you could print those out, again, bind them, comb bind them, staple them. That's what you could put as far as your books. That's within the RC realm, that you don't have to go out and get anything extra. But other than that, you could just, to keep it just really simple, maybe subscription boxes. We did the Mel chemistry sets. We tried those out. Those are really fun experiments, and they have little booklets and things teaching them. It's very hands-on, and you don't have to buy the stuff. I love that. You don't have to buy any of the supplies or store the leftovers. They give you exactly the measurements that you need, what you need, so that then you could just toss it afterward. You could also get from Amazon those science kits that have all kinds of different experiments. So I like to buy those once or twice a year and just let them have it, let them have fun with it. I'm not really involved with it except them, just showing me what they've created, what they've done. They really like those. They're pretty affordable. And so you could list something like that in your transcripts. So hopefully that should be more than enough for any state requirements. But if you live in a state that's really picky and they really want you to show some type of work for science, unfortunately, that's going to be really outside of the realm of RC. If you can think of some ideas, please share them down below. But I really couldn't think of a way to physically have some kind of record of their progress when it comes to science. I would just try to find the most basic, non-agenda pushing, simple little workbook from Amazon that they could do. But I think for most in general, books that you list or monographs that you list and subscription boxes or science box kits, I think that should be more than enough. Now, as far as foreign languages, I did want to cover that because you might live in a state that requires it. Now, I have a video that could be a little bit controversial, why you shouldn't teach foreign languages or geography. And I think most people understand the gist of it, that whenever you introduce or add another subject, it just does take up part of your bandwidth of what you can really give your concentration to, no matter how little time it is, 10, 15 minutes, but you're doing 8 things, 10, 15 minutes. It's not the same as doing 3 things for 5 hours, 4 hours, you can imagine. And so we really want that focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic in those critical foundational years. So with that being said, if you do live in a state that is requiring a foreign language, I know we say no screens, but I do really like Duolingo. I think that's just the best approach today. It's more effective than just, workbooks, things like that. It's much more interactive. You're typing things, you're hearing things. It's really exercising all of the senses. Now, let's talk about transcripts, how to create them. Well, I have this really fantastic free link that I am sharing with you in the description below where you can create transcripts for free. I'm surprised a lot of places online, you have to pay to actually create it. But this link is really fantastic. You could put down credits, you could put down grades, GPAs, whatever you need, especially if they're going to college and you need something more formal like this. It's just really fantastic. You can fill it in. And I would just say, a tip that I got from Dr. Librand to just make it really stress-free those high school years, just do your transcript before they start high school. That way you're just following a plan instead of at the very end, you're scrambling around from what did we do and what did you read, trying to create that transcript. Create it ahead of time and then just be at peace and just follow your transcript. Of course, change it if you have to, but it's a lot better to be proactive in this and just go ahead and do it and follow it than, try to scramble around at the last minute to create something. Let me know in the comments down below what other organizational type video you'd like to see from me. I recently just updated my 5-day challenge forms where I go through and I show you how I organize our whole home life, not just school, but chores, what we do every day, things like that. I'll put a link down below so you could take that free 5-day challenge with me. Again, helpful links down below, as well as that freebie record page that you can print out. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.